Welcome to the Life with Grief podcast. I'm your host, grief and soul purpose coach, and fellow griever, Tara Accardo. Welcome back to the Life with Grief podcast, my friend. I hope you are doing so well today. This is definitely a no makeup, hair still wet from my shower this morning kind of day for me. But you know what? That is okay, because on this podcast, we show up exactly how we are, where we're at, the most unpolished, beautiful, perfect version of ourselves. And we're doing it together, right? Zero judgments here. So I am so excited to dig into this particular topic with you. Like many topics here on the podcast, it's something that weighs on my heart. I see a lot. I continue feeling the need to talk about. And it's one of those things that is a big one that we have to face and cope with when we've been through a loss. And this can be a loss of any kind. You know, a lot of the time here on the podcast, we're talking about the loss of a loved one, but please know that this could apply to going through a divorce, a breakup, moving to a new place. I mean, this particular topic today is a big one. It's a broad one. It's a lot to get into. It's probably more than we can even really cover here in this short time together. So as always, want to preface it with that. But I think it's one that can weigh very heavily on us. And it's one that can be a little intimidating and scary too. So as always, we don't shy away from that stuff here. We get into it and we get raw and we get relatable. So that's what I want to serve you here today. And I really hope you find this particular episode and topic helpful. So that all being said, we are talking about something that we all face after loss: uncertainty, that terrifying, gaping void of the unknown that feels unbearable, like something we didn't sign up for. But what if I told you? We're already reframing here, right? We are not waiting long to get into this one. What if I told you that the unknown can be your greatest teacher? Now, I know depending on where you are in your grief experience, you might be a little like, okay, Tara, that's a little woo-woo for me. Please get off your soapbox. It's too early for that. Whatever. I want you to know I hear you. And wherever you are in your journey, because there's a lot of you listening here that are on different ends of the spectrum in terms of where you are in your grief. If you are in that acute, really early days of grief, this could be a little hard to hear. You might not be totally ready for this episode. I want to just invite you to stick around for as much of it as you can, because I've said this before on the podcast too, but like for me, when I was in those earlier days and phases, if you will, I needed to hear these things. I was almost itching to hear these things, like that there was hope, that there was possibility, that there was something out there that I could hold on to, even if I wasn't totally ready for it, or I was almost like resentful of hearing it, or I was like, oh my God, you're too happy for me right now. But I think hearing these things is really important to keep us moving forward, to keep that hope alive, to see other people doing it and hearing their stories and hearing their experiences and knowing that that could be us too, right? In some way that like that's out there for us. So that being said, you might be kind of early on, so just hang out with me on this one. Keep it in the back of your head for later, as I always say. Or maybe you're a little bit further along and you are ready and willing to embrace this unknown. You maybe just don't know how, or you need a little help kind of wrapping your head around it and figuring out what this might look like and feel like to you. So wherever you're at, that's okay. Own that, embrace that, because we're walking this path together. And I want to honor exactly where you are today. And as a follow-up question to, what if the unknown could be your greatest teacher? What if that stepping into uncertainty could be one of the biggest acts of courage and growth and even renewal that you have ever given yourself in your life, right? So today we're diving deep into how to embrace the unknown after loss, why it is essential, little mindset shifts that make this even remotely possible for us, and some tangible steps to turn that fear into possibility, into hope. So, that being said, I want to just say this one more time, just a little context. If you are in those earlier acute stages of grief, this might be a little early for you to hear. The unknown might feel horrible and scary and unfair, and like you don't even want to go there. That's okay. I just invite you to either listen to this with an open heart and mind and see how it lands for you. Take what you like, leave what you don't, or save this one for later when you feel like you're more ready. But this episode really taps into the essence of life with grief. But even outside of our grief, because there will always be unknowns, right? This isn't like special to grief. So we have a choice to be fearful and hesitant and closed off, or curious, hopeful, and open. So let's just quickly talk about why embracing the unknown is actually essential. And it is so critical to our growth, our post-traumatic growth when we go through something hard or difficult or devastating. When we lose someone or something significant, a person via a death, a relationship, a sense of identity, we lose our roadmap. The life we had envisioned is suddenly gone, or at least changed to some degree. And in its place is a blank slate that feels anything but comforting, right? But here's the truth: the unknown is not the enemy, it is the birthplace of possibility. It's something we can fully own and make our own and even get excited about. I know that might feel so far off right now, but just hear me out on all of this. If we cling to the past too tightly, we deny ourselves the chance to evolve into the person that we are meant to become, especially after loss. So in this conversation, you can think about your grief and your specific losses here, but I also really invite you to like come out of that a little bit, have sort of this 30,000-foot view on your life and everything going on in it, right? So let's just going to invite you to just like take yourself out of the ego and out of the body here a little bit. So just want to get that in there. Whatever that loss is for you, though, again, divorce, breakup, death, moving to a new place, the list goes on. Imagine standing in a hallway with dozens of doors around you, but you refuse to open any of them because you are just continuously staring at the door that just closed, and you're stuck on that and you're dwelling on that. That's what resisting the unknown looks like. It keeps us stuck in a place that no longer serves us, especially if that door is permanently closed, it is shut, it is sealed. What value is that adding to our life, trying to force that door open again, right? We don't really, let's just be very truthful and kind of like blunt about this. We, in a lot of cases, don't have a choice but to move forward. And I want you to always remember, it is about moving forward. It is not about moving on. And there is a difference there. I've talked about that on the podcast here a little bit. But I love that term, moving forward, right? Because it's like we're carrying all of this with us. We are, if not accepting, we are resigned to what has happened, but we take that as part of our life experience and we're like, okay, let me pick myself up. Now what? Now what? And that's where the possibility and sort of this idea of embracing the unknown can really come from. And it's moving forward, even when that path is unclear. That's like a really, really important part of all of this, because I think a lot of us can get really intimidated or scared about moving forward or this embracing the unknown, like even wrapping our head around that idea when that path is unclear. Nothing is more intimidating or scary than that. But that is the most critical time, actually, because it's not clear and it won't be. Maybe not for a while, especially when we've been through something devastating. And how can it, right? We can't even see the way forward. And perhaps we don't even want to look for it, or we don't know how to. Maybe that's why you're listening here today. Maybe that's what's resonating with you. But that doesn't mean we don't continue taking those daily steps. Because you know probably that life doesn't stop when our loss happened. People still go to work. We still got to go grocery shopping. We still might have kids to take care of or a relationship to nourish or whatever. So I just gently invite you to consider this a blank slate in a way. I want to remind you, as I've done probably in many episodes now, you have never been this version of yourself before. That's a big deal. And while the unknown can be so terrifying and so unwelcome at times, what better time to reset, take a sacred pause, take a literal breath, and take those micro moments to work through our loss. And that's a really important piece of that because if we are working through our grief and our losses properly and getting the right support and doing all the things, then the unknown, it feels less scary because forward motion, even in uncertainty, keeps us open to new opportunities, relationships, and experiences that can bring some really unexpected healing as well. And who doesn't want a little bit more of that in their lives, right? So here's a quick little reframe to consider. What if uncertainty wasn't something to fear, but rather a space for discovery or rediscovery of self, of what makes you feel lit up, what makes you feel fulfilled and joyful? And maybe it's something you've never even considered before, ever in your life. That is certainly what my losses have taught me. And instead of seeing the unknown as this abyss, right, just before us that feels so overwhelming, I'm going to get a little woo-woo here for a second. What if you saw it as a canvas, right? Something that is waiting for your specific gifts to come and paint on it, something that you can design and create into whatever you want. What maybe you have always wanted, but you never even knew that you wanted because it didn't even seem like an opportunity before. That shift allows you to explore new possibilities without the weight of expectation. And I really want you to release expectations here. This is like a huge part. This is a big learning for me, honestly, personally, in my own grief journey. But one big thing, one big opportunity that I think a lot of us grievers have is to release a lot of expectation because there's so much expectation placed on us, right? To get back to work and be fully functioning by a certain time, to be able to show up fully for loved ones around us when we might not be ready. The list goes on and on. So the only expectation that we really need to be like focused on and really, really care about are the ones that we place on ourselves. And I invite you to be really gentle with that and be really realistic about that. And so this is not a conversation about expectations, but I just want to plant that seed because that's a really important piece to all of this. And embracing the unknown requires shifting our perspective. So let's just talk quickly about 3 really kind of powerful little mindset shifts that can help you navigate this space with a little bit more ease. One is that certainty was always an illusion. Think about that for a second. Before your loss, life may have felt predictable in a way, maybe solid, uninterrupted, dependable, like we could actually trust what was coming next to some degree. Maybe we were just unfazed by loss until you went through what you did. But was it really? Think back here for a moment, even like pause this episode seriously if you need to. How often did unexpected moments change your course? Think outside of loss here, maybe. Perhaps it was a time where someone surprised you, either for the better or for the worse. Perhaps you had a situation in your mind going one way and then the reality went in a totally different direction. We often mistake routine for certainty, but life has always been uncertain. It always will be. It doesn't necessarily take loss and deep grief to go through that. What loss does is strips us of this illusion of control. But in truth, that uncertainty has always existed. So recognizing this can help you just release a little bit of pressure to figure it all out, to have it figured out. And instead of resisting change and resisting the unknown, We acknowledge that life was never fully within our control anyway. Only our response to it was. So, a helpful mantra that you can maybe write down or just remember or kind of say to yourself whenever you need it is I was never in control of everything. I never will be in control of everything. And that's okay. I can trust myself to navigate what comes next, right? Because we are in control of our response to uncertainty and to the unknown. So you can repeat that maybe whenever a little anxiety about the future creeps in, because I know this is a big one for us grievers, right? We're living in the past a lot. We're longing for what was, but the future can also feel, like I said, just very, very overwhelming. So just bringing ourselves back to that present moment is really important. Number two is discomfort as a sign of growth. Most of us, rightfully so, instinctively avoid discomfort. And that's valid, right? Most of us are maybe okay with like a little discomfort, maybe because it makes life interesting. Like that's kind of where I land on that. I'm like, okay, I like to be challenged a little bit. But some of us might loathe it altogether. Or we've been through a lot of loss and a lot of change and a lot of unknowns that we're just over it. We're like, oh my God, please, can I just tap out of this one? Like, I'm good. I'm done. Thank you. But who truly wants to live in a state of discomfort, right? That's so fair. But when we go through a loss of some kind, that's exactly how we might feel. But I want you to remember that discomfort, it's not a punishment. It's a signal that you are expanding beyond your old self. That is the essence of life, right? It's the essence of life. It's the essence of loss. It is the essence of this human experience. We don't need to go through loss to understand that. That is what it means to be human. So think of it like growing pains. When we were kids, our bones maybe literally ached as they stretched to accommodate our growing bodies. Emotional growth works very much the same way. Loss often forces us into this process far before we're ready, which is why we can get stuck or we might resist it. But in fact, we need to be approaching it differently. So I invite you to think about a time in your life when you felt stretched beyond your limits. Maybe that's right now as you are listening to this, but you've come out stronger, or there's a chance that you could come out stronger. So maybe it was a new job, a tough breakup, moving to a new place that's a little out of your comfort zone. The fear of that might have felt overwhelming, but on the other side of it, you found some resilience, whether or not you realized it. You probably did. So maybe you found something better than you even imagined for yourself. And if nothing else, listen, maybe it was a learning experience, right? That's how I try and think of things in my life. I'm just like, well, Jesus, I don't know why that had to happen or, XYZ, whatever it was, even outside of my parents dying. But I always like to kind of reflect and be like, well, oh my God, if nothing else, I learned from that, even if it's not something I'm proud of or not thrilled that I had to go through. So think about this reframe a little bit too. This feeling isn't a setback, it's a sign of a powerful transformation, even if it's happening little by little. When you feel discomfort, instead of running from it, perhaps ask, what is this trying to teach me? Just be open to that, right? It's not like every single thing in our life has to be a lesson or we, have to take away some massive thing from it. But like, that is life. We live and we learn, right? Number three, these little mindset shifts here, you can create a new relationship with the unknown. So let me just kind of pose this. What if you got curious about the unknown instead of fearing it? So instead of dreading the what ifs and like having fear around that, oh, well, what if this happens? What if that doesn't happen? What if, what if, what if? Because we all know that what if game is not a fun one. What if you played with it a little bit? Turn it around. So instead, ask, what if something beautiful is waiting for me? What is kind of quote on the other side of this, for lack of a better term, is something so much bigger than myself, so much more empowering, so much more life changing than I can even imagine or picture right now. And just being open to that. Just that little shift from that like kind of more negative what if to like just an open what if shifts your brain's focus from complete and utter catastrophe to possibility. So you can start small here. Try something new each week, maybe. This could literally be like visiting a new place, taking a different route home, maybe exploring a new hobby, something that was never on your radar before. Whatever it looks like, when we expose ourselves to small doses of uncertainty and kind of challenging ourselves a little bit, we build confidence in handling bigger unknowns. And let me make this very clear. Nothing could ever really prepare us for the loss of like a loved one, for example, right? Nothing, in my case, nothing ever could have prepared me for the loss of my parents and the unknowns that came with that. Like I've talked about this on the podcast as well. I won't belabor this, but I remember sitting in my living room the morning that my dad died. So now both parents officially gone. This is why this topic is so important to me, this unknown. I've never felt anything like that before in my life. This overwhelm, this complete and utter fear and overwhelm of what was next. Literally what was next for that day. What was next for that week. I'm almost getting like, this is really taking me back. That was a really, really poignant moment in my life. That morning my dad died. I mean, outside of like the sadness and the grief, the profound grief that I was feeling with both of my parents being dead, but I was so scared because, like many of you can probably relate to, I now didn't have the two people that I needed the most, who made things certain for me, who made the unknowns less scary because I could at least talk to them. I could call them, I could text them, I could talk through it with these beautiful people, these amazing souls that raised me, that I came from, that I am on a cellular level a part of. And that bond, like that tether, I've built it up now. I feel it now with them, but like that has broken and it will never feel the same as it was when they were here physically. Period. And that's not okay, but like, okay, I've come to be resigned to those circumstances. Like I understand my reality now. Not going to be happy about it, but it's my life, right? So maybe you're feeling something similar. And so I just want you to know that just on a me to you level here, I understand how absolutely frightening the unknown can be. And we did not sign up for this. We don't want this. We weren't prepared for it. Even though I saw the writing on the wall with my dad dying after my mom, like nothing prepares you. And also that day, maybe not that day, but like days after, I knew I wasn't going to be the same person I was before. And not knowing what that meant, it scared me, but like it could have scared me more, I guess, in a way. I will give my parents a lot of credit here. They really set me up for a lot of success in terms of being independent and being able to kind of look inward and be like, okay, let me take a breath, let me check in with myself. But like, trust me, you guys, this was not a perfect science. This was not a perfect process. And it did scare me a lot some days because I also didn't want to navigate this new life without my parents. It was all unknowns, every single bit of it. Did like the questions that, some of the questions, there's a lot of questions. Some of the questions that went through my head was, did I want to keep living in the current town I was in? This is, by the way, this is not all the day that my dad died that I had these questions. Okay. This is like after, but like, did I want to keep living in the same city? Did I want to keep the same job? Did I want to completely start over? Because, by the way, if you don't know this about my story, I'd gone through a breakup just a couple of months before my dad died too. So that was another factor here that I will not go into. That was with my now husband. We broke up. We got back together. We've talked about that on the podcast before. But, all of those things started coming up for me. I spent a lot of time alone. I read books. I listened to podcasts that I never did before. with time, with lots of time, I started opening myself up more and more to embrace the unknown a little bit. And I started losses become gains because of that, which opened me up to this entirely new community of people. And what was so beautiful about that, and this is why, I'm sharing this part of my story, not to go on and on about myself, but just to encourage you, like, the reason it's so important when we're ready to embrace and be open to change and the unknown is because you just never know what's out there for you and how it's going to change your life for the better. So, for example, with this community of people, this beautiful, beautiful community that I'm so thankful for, I don't have to explain my story. I don't have to explain my grief, my heartbreak, my identity. I could just be. And there's some people in my life that I couldn't just be with anymore. And my relationships and things have changed. Some for the better, some I've had to release, and that's okay. And with this new community, because I was surrounded by both, people that I previously had in my life and new people, people who knew nothing about some of my past, I had the opportunity to keep parts of my old self that I still wanted, but also leave parts of my old self behind and release those parts with love. And anyone who knew the previous version of me was going to have to grow with me if they wanted to stay there, and vice versa, right? That's a give and take relationship, right? It's not all about us. But the beauty of all of that and having people around me that added value to my life and were there for me in a meaningful way, and then I could give that back to them, meant that I could become whoever I wanted to be. And like, how empowering is that? And for the first time, I wasn't confined by past expectations. I mean, I was by some people, for sure. I've gotten lots of feedback on how I choose to navigate grief and talk about it and stuff even. But the more that I've allowed myself to embrace this new version and the unknown and everything that's ahead for me, I learned I could experiment. I could grow. I could shift in ways that I never allowed myself to before, maybe. And that realization opened up my entire world. Because if I could leave that version of myself behind, then I could live anywhere I wanted. I could become anyone I wanted to be. And I still can. I now live with this mindset every single day. And I measure my success and the value of things in my life according to how happy and joyful it makes me, not according to any other mean or currency. Now, of course, there's money, there's things I need to buy, there's ways I need to support my family. Like, of course, that's part of all of this, but I'm getting way deeper here. This is on a much more soulful level, right? So I say all of this because I just want to encourage you and implore you to get curious and to be open to this, and just hammer home the importance of welcoming that into our life, because it does make the unknown a little less scary when we take those small steps and those little micro moments to embrace that and to dig into it. So to start wrapping up this episode slowly but surely, let's talk about some practical steps that you can take to shift from fear to empowerment in the face of unknown. One thing I love to do is create sort of an anchor of self-trust. So when everything feels uncertain, anchor into yourself, because that's like the one thing that you can control pretty well, right? Can't control other people, can't control situations, certainly can't control life, but you can control your mindset and what you say and what you do. So this means cultivating trust in your ability to handle what is ahead, even if you don't know the details, because most of the time we're not going to, right? So we kind of have to, kind of got to live with that a little bit. And it could take a while for those details to shake out, and that's okay. And I can guarantee you, those little details will continue to shift over time as well. So perhaps practice a little self-trust through journaling. Journaling's not the end all be all of coping tools, right? I want to just, hammer that home, but it is can be a very helpful tool. So one way you can practice self-trust is through journaling. I want to hammer home, journaling is not the end all be all of coping tools. It's not like we can just journal our way through our grief. I always want to make that very clear, but it can be a very powerful tool for self-reflection and all of that. So, for example, maybe each night you write down one moment where you handled something unknown well, or maybe you just surprised yourself a little bit, no matter how small it is. So, for example, I didn't know how this day was going to go, but I got through it. That is proof that I can navigate tomorrow too. And over time, these small little pieces of evidence, if you will remind you that you are so much more capable than you think. You got through this day. Who's to say that you can't get through tomorrow too? It could be worse than today. It could be a lot better than today, but we don't know unless we face it, right? Number 2 is to follow little micro desires. So after loss, it's hard to think about big dreams, but little micro desires, little small sparks of curiosity can really help guide you forward. So those are the things that are going to ultimately make the biggest impact for you. So if something piques your interest, even subtly, I invite you to follow it. Maybe it is a book on a topic that intrigues you. Might have nothing to do with personal growth or anything like that. Maybe it's some interesting bit of history or a nonfiction book or a biography of somebody that is really inspiring to you. Maybe it's a class that catches your eye or a person that you just feel drawn to reconnect with. Maybe someone from your childhood or from some other phase of your life, right? There's no certain way that this has to look. But these small nudges can often lead to really beautiful, unexpected paths of healing and finding purpose and just finding a little something to get excited about and hold on to on those days where we just are oh my God, there's nothing for me to be excited about or hold on to here. I truly am of the belief that those things don't come into your life for no reason. I am convinced of that. That has been proven to me more times than I can count in my journey of coping with grief. So ask yourself, what calls to you right now? That could be the little thread to your next chapter. And understand and realize and embrace the fact that this might change moment by moment. This might change day by day. That's okay. Number 3 is to kind of ritualize uncertainty a little bit. So we can better make a little peace with uncertainty by creating rituals around it. Because rituals create a sense of stability within chaos, which is oftentimes what we're really deeply seeking. So, for example, maybe every morning you say, I welcome the unknown and I trust myself to meet it. I love that mantra so much. I love that idea of okay, I trust myself, even if we don't fully yet, just get into that mindset and that you can meet these things with confidence head on, that the unknown does not own you. You own it in a way. So this could involve, if you want to truly ritualize this, you can maybe light a candle, do some calming breath work if that calls to you, and really drop into this. And remind yourself that today holds so many unseen possibilities. Every single day does. Again, outside of loss, outside of grief here. Again, we're taking a much more macro view on all of this. This is just the essence of day-to-day life. We never know what's going to happen, right? Really. Might have plans, but then, God or the universe or whatever laughs in our face and it's just let me go ahead and hand you this instead. So this practice, if you're really kind of struggling with how overwhelming that can feel, can shift your nervous system from fear to openness of what could come. Number 4 is to ask better questions. So instead of asking, for example, what if everything goes wrong, right? That doom and gloom that we can often live in. Try, what if something unexpected and good comes from this? I want to preface this, you guys. This is especially for those of us listening here who have lost loved ones and things like that. That's a much bigger situation here. So again, please remember, we're talking little outside of our grief and loss. This is much more broad. This is like life in general type thing that I'm talking about right now. It's not that something unexpected or good or whatever can come from someone dying. Okay, it's not what I'm saying here. But let me just put it this way. Your brain will look for answers to the questions that you ask it, right? That's what it's like trained to do. So we want to give it better questions to work with. So instead of assuming worst case scenarios, challenge yourself a little bit to consider best case ones too. Again, this could be day-to-day life type of things. This might be something going on within your family, something going on within work. Like this could be absolutely nothing related to any loss that you've been through. This is just it's the essence of life with grief, right? It's why this podcast exists, because these things continue to come up in and out of our grieving experience. So to wrap this up, I want to just close this out by saying that stepping into the unknown after loss, it's not about erasing grief or pretending that we aren't afraid or that these things didn't happen. It's because those things happened. It's because we might be fearful. It's because of our grief and all of the chaos going on around us that it's so important too. And it's about acknowledging that fear and digging deep within us to meet it. And like I said, moving forward while carrying both the joy and the sadness, the hope and the fear, all of it. It's all a duality. And it's about trusting that even in uncertainty, there is possibility when you're ready to embrace that mindset. And honestly, I didn't see this earlier on in my acute grief. I just didn't. So if that is where you are right now and this doesn't totally hit for you, please know that's okay. I have been there. I was even resentful of hearing things like this at one point in time, but I kept hearing them and I kept myself open just enough to kind of like let these things in. And frankly, some days I was just totally closed off because it was too painful, and that's okay. But I kept listening. And so I ask you to keep listening too, not just literally to this podcast, just like to God, the universe, life, everything that it is trying to tell you and teach you. And for me personally, now I am here. I am embracing the unknown in ways I never thought I could have. And so I want to invite you to do the same. And I want you to know that you are so much stronger than you think you are. You are so much more resilient than you realize. If you are listening to this podcast and you have made it this far, I think you know that too. I hope you know that too. And your story is unfolding in ways that you cannot yet imagine. I promise you that. And I promise you that that can actually be an exciting thing at some point too, if it doesn't yet feel exciting. All right, my friend, thank you so much for your open-mindedness through this episode today. And if this episode resonated with you, be sure to share it with someone who might need it too. That is the ultimate act of love that I think we can give someone, is just to be like, hey, I thought of you when I heard this. Maybe this can help you. Just it's a gentle lending hand of support. And I hope this episode and this podcast continue to be that kind of resource. And if you are ready to explore this journey further and dig a little deeper into your grief, to process it, to get to know it better, to get to know yourself better, I invite you to, if you haven't yet, connect with me on Instagram at Losses Become Gains or at Life with Grief Podcast. I'm also on TikTok over there. Or you can visit lossesbecomegains.com for more resources on navigating life after loss. That is all linked in the show notes too. There's lots of resources there, my little mini courses, the blog, all the good things. And last but not least, I want to just mention that we will not be doing episodes next week because I will actually be gone on vacation. I am really trying to allow myself to mentally check out, enjoy time with my husband and daughter. We are going on a much needed vacation. So I am allowing myself the grace and the time to do that and really be present and relax and enjoy that with them. So we will be back the following week with more episodes, but I hope between this episode and the recent morning sips and soul shifts that you feel well supported. And like I said, plenty of resources on my website as well if you need a little gentle guidance, and extra love and support. So until next time, remember that the unknown is not here to break you. It is here to shape you. Sending you lots of love, and I'll see you in the next episode. I am sending you a huge thank you for tuning into today's episode, my friend. I'm so grateful you're here and for the steps you are taking to heal your heart, open your mind, fulfill your soul, learn, grow, and evolve, and move through this crazy thing called life in big, beautiful, impactful ways. Visit lossesbecomegains.com for my blog, more coping tools, ways to work with me, and so much more. And be sure you're following along on Instagram and Facebook at Losses Become Gains, and on Instagram and TikTok at Life with Grief Podcast. I love seeing new faces, meeting new people, hearing your stories, and supporting you however I can. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and share this episode or this podcast with someone who could use it too. And remember to always keep asking yourself, how will I turn my losses into gains today? I'll catch you in the next episode.